The Grand Rotunda drifted in quiet space like a giant lantern around a dead star. Inside, it held the voices of thousands of worlds. The air wasn't really air. Every species carried their own breath in small fields, but the sound still filled the chamber. Arguments translated into arguments, complaints turned into neat, polite sentences. Today's topic was boring. Two border species were fighting over a thin strip of empty space, the kind of dispute that happens so often even the guards looked sleepy. Ambassador Dream Salt sat in the speaker's chair, his dark plated arms folded. His eyes flicked over reports while he tried not to yawn. He was already thinking about his next meal. Then someone stood up. Not from the front seats where power usually lived, but from the back, so far back most delegates forgot there were chairs there. He was Aerith Val, the last of the Kethsori, a people so old their history was older than most stars in the room's charts. He was thin and bent, like a tree that had survived too many winters. Under his pale skin, a soft light pulsed, slow, steady, tired. His voice was quiet, yet it reached everyone at once. Invoke the voice of the eldest. The chamber froze. That rule was ancient, older than the concordance itself. It meant the oldest living being had the right to speak, and nobody could interrupt. Most thought it was a legend, like a children's warning used to scare young politicians into behaving. Ambassador Salt's mandibles clicked in irritation. "Honored elder," he began, carefully polite, "the chamber recognizes your right, but perhaps—" "Sit down," Val said. Not angry, not loud, just certain, like someone who had carried a truth for centuries and was finally done waiting. Salt sat. Val stepped slowly into the center aisle. Each step looked expensive, as if it stole strength from him. In the chronicler's booth, a young recorder named Maven leaned forward and turned on her device, expecting a small speech, maybe a complaint, maybe a warning about old traditions. Val's inner light flickered warmer for a moment, almost like grief remembered. "They came to us with open hands," he said. "Their first message was not a threat. It was a song." His voice cracked just slightly on the last word, and Maven felt her chest tighten without knowing why. Then his light cooled again, turning pale blue. "And one day," Val continued, "the sky above their home turned red." He lifted his eyes to the speaker's chair. "And you closed the doors." Maven's fingers shook over the recorder. Val's final words in this session fell like a stone into still water. "They did not vanish in the dark," he whispered. As the chamber tried to return to its petty border dispute, a terrified officer burst through the side door, eyes wide, voice trembling, because 17 frontier relay stations had just gone silent at the exact same time. The side doors slammed so hard the sound rippled through the rotunda like a shockwave. A security officer stumbled in, one hand pressed to his throat mic, the other gripping a data pad like it was the only solid thing left in the universe. His uniform was neat, but his eyes weren't. They looked like someone had just pulled the floor out from under him. "Council," he tried, then swallowed. "Council, we have a priority alert." Murmurs rose immediately, annoyed, impatient, dramatic. But then the officer lifted the data pad, and the screens around the chamber changed on their own, overriding the agenda. 17 dots blinked on a star map, frontier relay stations spread along the outer rim. One by one, the dots turned gray. "Communication blackout?" Ambassador Salt snapped, regaining his voice. "A solar storm? Pirate jamming? Explain." The officer's lips trembled. "It's not jamming. It's not weather." He tapped the pad. A line of cold text appeared under each station name. "Status, offline. No wreckage signal, no life signs, no emergency pings. That last part made the room tilt into a different kind of silence. Every station, no distress call, no debris field, no drifting escape pods, just gone. Maven in the chronicler's booth forgot to breathe. Her recorder kept running, catching the quiet panic that translators struggled to smooth into polite words. A military delegate from the Varn Dominion stood. "This looks like synchronized assault." Another voice cut in. "But by whom? Those stations are protected by treaty." A third delegate hissed, "Treaties don't stop hungry species." Across the chamber, Aerith Val did not move. He only watched, like this was the next page of a book he had already read long ago. Ambassador Salt leaned forward. "Officer, any sensor recordings before the blackout?" The officer nodded quickly, too quickly. "Yes, 2 stations managed to push out 5 seconds of raw data." The screens changed again. Static, snow, then space. A curve of darkness and something behind it. Not a ship the size of a cruiser or a carrier. This was a shadow that swallowed stars. A shape so wide it didn't seem like engineering. It looked like an eclipse with edges. Then, in the final second, a pulse of light cut across the feed. Thin, clean, bright. And the data ended. No explosion, no fireball, no debris, just silence. A soft, frightened sound moved through the council, a noise made by thousands of throats that suddenly remembered they could die. "This is impossible," someone whispered. The Varn military delegate's voice sharpened. "Nothing that large can move unseen. We would have tracked it." Aerith Val finally spoke again, quiet as falling ash. "You tracked what you expected." His words felt like a blade slid under armor. Ambassador Salt's tone tried to hold authority, but the fear leaked through. "Send the nearest patrol groups. Confirm the situation, now." The officer nodded and spoke into his mic. "All patrol fleets are already mobilizing, but, Council, there's more." He hesitated, like saying it out loud would make it real. In one of the last station logs, a transmission was identified, untranslated, broadcast just before the blackout. "From the attacker?" Salt demanded. The officer swallowed. "Yes, and the pattern doesn't match any known language family." Aerith Val's inner light pulsed once, slow and painful. Maven leaned closer as the officer added, almost in a whisper, "It sounded like a human lullaby." Before anyone could respond, the Rotunda's long-range warning system screamed because an Allied border fleet had just sighted the same eclipse-shaped object, and it was moving straight toward a major trade world. The Rotunda's warning siren wasn't loud. It was worse than loud. It was a pure tone that bypassed language and went straight into the spine. Every translator in every throat went quiet, as if even machines didn't want to speak over it. On the main screen, a new map appeared, bright lanes of commerce dotted with stations and ports. In the middle sat a jewel, Kalen Drift, a trade world known for floating cities and open markets. Billions lived there. Billions worked there. Billions trusted the Council's flag like it was a shield. A fleet tag flashed in red. All Allied Border Group 7, live feed active. Maven's hands tightened on the railing. She didn't realize she was standing until her knees hurt. The feed opened. Stars, calm. Then the edge of Kalen Drift's system. Gas clouds, shipping lanes, and dozens of civilian freighters turning like slow animals. A voice came through, strained but steady. "This is Admiral Ro Ven. Council, do you see it?" The camera shifted. At first, nothing. Then darkness. Not empty space. Not shadow. Something solid in the wrong way, like night had grown bones. It was far away, but it still looked too large, like a city turned sideways, like a mountain that learned to float. Several escorts moved forward, sleek cruisers, bright shields, proud shapes designed to be seen. Admiral Ven's voice dropped. "We are attempting contact." A signal beam leapt out, coated with all the polite greetings of 1,000 species. It repeated in cycles, offering identity, treaty status, approach rules. No reply. The object kept coming. "Second attempt," the Admiral said, now broadcasting in emergency frequencies. Still nothing. The escorts adjusted formation, weapons warmed, shield harmonics tightened. You could hear the officers breathing now, too close to the mic, like the air itself had become heavy. Then the object did something small. It changed the way the stars looked behind it. Space seemed to bend, like the universe made room. A thin line of light appeared, so narrow it looked harmless. It stretched out from the dark shape and touched the lead cruiser. Just touched it. The cruiser didn't explode. It didn't burn. It didn't even break. It simply separated, cleanly, a perfect slice through hull and shield and reactor. The two halves drifted apart like a fruit cut by an invisible wire. On the rotunda floor, someone made a choking sound. Admiral Ven didn't swear. He went very quiet, and that was worse. "All ships," he said, voice shaking now. "Evasive." Then a second line of light flashed, then a third, like a hand combing through water. 3 more escorts fell apart in silent pieces, their crews erased before anyone could scream. Maven's throat went tight. She imagined faces behind those ships, people who had eaten breakfast, who had promised to come home, who never got the chance to be afraid. The Admiral's breathing turned rough. "Council, this is not combat. This is execution." Ambassador Salt snapped, trying to sound in control. "Withdraw. Protect the planet. Move civilians into shelters." The Admiral's eyes flicked off screen, listening to someone else. His lips parted. "Council," he whispered. "It's ignoring us. It's not chasing the fleet." He looked back at the camera, pale. "It's going straight for Kalen Drift." Aerith Val's tired voice floated into the chamber like a funeral cloth. "They always go for the place you think is safe," he said. As Kalen Drift's defense grid powered up, the unknown object finally transmitted one sentence, perfectly translated, using the Council's own emergency voice codes. "Do not interfere. We are collecting what was stolen." The sentence hung in the rotunda like smoke. "Do not interfere. We are collecting what was stolen." It wasn't just what the message said, it was how it said it. Perfect Council emergency format, the exact priority tone, the exact authority stamp. As if the unknown fleet had reached into the concordance itself and borrowed its voice. Ambassador Soult's plated fingers tightened on the armrests. "How can an outsider use our codes?" A tech delegate answered with a tremble. "They can't, not unless they have access to our relay encryption keys." That possibility hit the chamber like ice water, because encryption keys didn't leak to pirates. They didn't drift in space. They lived in council vaults, behind layers of law and pride. Aerith Val's eyes looked distant, like he was staring at something far beyond the rotunda's walls. "When you shut doors, you leave windows open, and you assume no one is watching." On the screen, Kalen Drift grew larger. The feed now came from a civilian orbital camera, shaky footage from someone's balcony in a floating city. People were pointing upward, some were filming, some were praying in their own ways. The unknown object had entered the inner system. It wasn't racing, it wasn't weaving, it moved with slow certainty, like time itself. Kalen Drift's defense grid lit up, rings of bright energy around the planet, dozens of platforms rotating into firing arcs, 1,000 years of peacekeeping technology, polished and expensive, built for the moment everyone hoped would never arrive. A commander on the planet-wide channel shouted orders. "All batteries, target lock, fire on my mark." Ambassador Sult rose, voice hard. "Do it. Protect the world." For a second, Maven thought of the billions below. Vendors, dock workers, kids running through markets, someone making tea, someone waking up late, someone laughing at a joke they wouldn't remember tomorrow. Then, the defense grid fired. Light speared upward. Hundreds of coordinated beams and plasma lances struck the darkness. And the unknown object didn't flinch. The energy washed over it like rain over stone. Its outline shimmered once, as if it had acknowledged the effort, the way an adult might acknowledge a child's angry punch. Then it responded, not with rage, with efficiency. A pulse rolled out, silent, wide, gentle-looking, like a soft wave on a calm ocean. Every defense platform blinked and died. One by one, the lights around the planet winked out. The firing stopped mid-burst. The sky went suddenly empty. The commander's voice cracked. "Grid is down. Grid is—" The channel dissolved into static. On the balcony feed, someone screamed, not because they saw fire, not because they saw an explosion, because the thing in the sky had just proven it could turn the planet's shield off like a lamp. Maven's eyes stung. She didn't even know who she was crying for anymore, those already lost or those about to understand what helpless really meant. Ambassador Sult's voice lowered, almost pleading now. "Unknown fleet, state your terms. We can negotiate." The reply came instantly. "You already did." Aerith Val's inner light pulsed, faint and mournful. "He is here not to bargain. He is here to finish a sentence you started." A new alert flashed, worse than the first, because the unknown object wasn't alone anymore. 6 smaller shadows just unfolded from its underside, and each one began descending toward Kalen Drift's cities.
The 6 smaller shadows separated like seeds released from a dark fruit. They didn't fall fast. They didn't burn. They glided, smooth and controlled, toward Kalen Drift's atmosphere. Their shapes were different from Council craft. No bright markings, no visible thrusters, no proud banners. Just clean geometry, like tools. On the balcony feed, a civilian voice sobbed into the camera. "They're coming down! They're coming down!" The rotunda erupted in panicked speech. Delegates stood, shouted, demanded action. Translators tried to keep up, turning raw fear into polite phrasing, and failing. Ambassador Sult banged the signal hammer until the tone cut through. "Order! Order!" The feed switched to planetary sensors. Each descender had a course line, straight toward major population zones, market hubs, port districts, residential rings. Maven's stomach turned. "They're targeting civilians," she whispered, though no one heard her. A defense minister from the Cash Coalition snapped. "We must deploy ground interceptors, air wings." A tactical analyst answered immediately. "Air wings are blind. The grid is down. Guidance is down. Everything is—" Aerith Val's voice slid between them like a cold thread. "They did not disable your weapons," he said. "They disabled your certainty." Ambassador Sult glared at him. "Elder Val, if you know something useful, say it plainly." Val looked at Sult with tired pity. "Plainly, fine." He pointed a thin finger at the map. "Those are not bombs." A ripple of confusion. "What are they then?" Sult demanded. Val's glow flickered as if remembering pain. "They are collectors." The screen zoomed in as the first descender pierced the upper atmosphere. No flames, no sonic boom, just a soft distortion around its hull, like it carried its own pocket of physics. It hovered above a floating city,
one of Kalen Drift's most famous marketplaces. From up there, you could see canals of light, air traffic lanes, and the bright ribbons of signage. Then the descender opened, not like doors, like a flower unfolding in reverse. A wide ring rotated out from its underside, and a deep hum rolled across the city. People on the street covered their ears. Some collapsed. Some stood frozen like statues. Then, something worse than violence. People started to rise. Not pulled by hooks, not grabbed by claws. They lifted gently, as if gravity became optional. Hundreds, then thousands, bodies drifting upward in slow spirals toward the ring. Their arms flailed, their mouths opened. The camera caught sound, crying, begging, names shouted into the sky. Maven's vision blurred. "No," she breathed. Ambassador Salt's voice broke. "Stop! Stop this!" On screen, the ring brightened. Those lifted bodies reached the edge and vanished. No blood, no pieces, no screams after the moment of contact. Just gone. A second descender began the same process above the port district, then a third over a residential ring. 6 cities, 6 spirals of rising people. A diplomat shouted, "They're abducting them!" A military delegate snarled, "Then destroy the descenders." But the Allied fleet was crippled, the defense grid was dead, and every attempt to fire a missile resulted in the missile falling like a rock, its systems wiped clean the moment it armed. Aerith Val closed his eyes. "They are not taking random lives," he said softly. "They are taking accounts." Maven stared at the spirals and felt something twist inside her. Not just horror, but shame. Because somewhere deep in her mind, the words from earlier returned. They came with open hands. Their first message was a song. And now, this was the answer. A new transmission cut through all channels, cold, calm, and final. "Return the human survivors you imprisoned, or we will keep collecting until your debt is paid."
The rotunda didn't sound like a parliament anymore. It sounded like a sinking ship, metal groaning, people shouting directions nobody trusted, leaders speaking louder because they had nothing else to offer. On the main screen, the message repeated in clean, translated text. "Return the human survivors you imprisoned, or we will keep collecting until your debt is paid." Ambassador Salt stood so fast his chair nearly tipped. "That is a lie," he snapped. "There are no human survivors." But the way he said it, too quick, too sharp, made the chamber turn toward him. Aerith Val's eyes didn't blink. "You should not lie in a room that records everything," he said quietly. A delegate from the Mirren Syndicate raised a trembling hand. "If this is false, why would they demand it? And how would they even know?" A tech minister whispered, "Unless they saw it." Maven felt her heart pounding in her throat. The words, "you imprisoned," wouldn't let go of her mind. Not "you defeated," not "you warned," not "you pushed away." Imprisoned. Ambassador Salt tried to recover control. "We are under attack. Focus. Military Council. Prepare countermeasures. Diplomacy unit. Open negotiation channels." No one moved, because the attack wasn't only outside the rotunda anymore. It was inside. A thin, gray-skinned ambassador, small, nervous, stood slowly. Her voice shook as she spoke. "My predecessor served on the Quiet Security Committee." She swallowed hard. "There were rumors about a program classified beyond standard council access." Salt's gaze became dangerous. "Sit down." She didn't. Her hands were shaking, but she forced the words out, like pulling thorns from her own mouth. "It was called Project Sanctuary," she said. "They said it was for containment after the human conflict. They said," her eyes filled with tears, "they said it was to prevent revenge." A wave of sick silence rolled across the chamber. Maven felt cold all over.
She stared at the council symbols carved into the walls, those proud emblems that meant unity. Now they looked like masks. Aerith Vow's inner light flickered, dim and tired. "So the cage was real," he murmured, "and you called it safety." Ambassador Solt's voice rose. "Those records are restricted for good reason. Because it's shame, not reason." A heavy figure in black ceremonial armor stood, one of the council's internal guardians. Maven had always thought they were just tradition. Now she realized they were something else. The guardian spoke like a locked door opening. "Project Sanctuary exists. Location classified. Access limited." A dozen delegates shouted at once. "How many? Where? Under whose authority?" The guardian looked at Sult, then away. "Under the authority of those who feared the consequences." Maven's mouth went dry. She imagined humans alive somewhere, trapped, frozen, experimented on, or simply stored like evidence. She imagined someone waking up each day knowing the galaxy moved on without them. Outside, on Callan Drift, the spirals continued. People rose into the collectors like leaves into a storm. And now the worst part was clear. This wasn't random cruelty, it was pressure. Ambassador Solt's voice cracked, and for the first time, he sounded like a person, not a title. "If we reveal that location, they'll destroy us." Aerith Vow's eyes softened, sad, not kind. "If you do not reveal it," he said, "they will destroy everyone else first." A sealed file suddenly unlocked across every council screen. Someone had forced it open from the inside, and the first line made Maven's blood freeze. "Sanctuary holding, 312 human subjects, status active, next transfer window in 3 hours." The Rotunda's screens flickered again. Not from an outside hack, not from a system update, from inside. A sealed document unfolded across every display at once, like a secret forced into daylight. The council's golden emblem sat at the top, mocking everyone with its promise of unity. Maven read the first line twice because her brain refused it. "Sanctuary holding, 312 human subjects, status active, next transfer window in 3 hours." A sound moved through the chamber, half gasp, half groan, like the entire council had been punched in the lungs at the same time. Ambassador Solt stared at the screen as if the words were a weapon pointed at him. "Who did this?" he demanded, voice cracking. "Who opened that file?" No one answered, because everyone was reading the rest. Location codes, transport schedules, medical notes, a list of names. Yes, names, not numbers, not specimens, actual human names typed in plain council font like they were inventory. Maven's hands shook so badly she almost dropped her recorder. She tried to swallow, but her throat felt too small. Aerith Vale stood with his head bowed, like a priest at a funeral that had waited centuries to happen. "You kept their faces and still slept." A delegate from a minor system rose, voice thin and furious. "This is a crime against sentience." Another snapped back, panicked. "If we surrender them, the unknown fleet might still punish us." A third yelled, "They're already punishing us." On the live feed from Callan Drift, a new spiral began. Another city, another ring, more people floating upward, screaming into the sky. The council had run out of excuses. Now it only had choices, ugly ones. A security director pushed forward. "We can evacuate the sanctuary site, relocate the humans, deny everything." Aerith Vale's voice cut through, soft but sharp. "They will find them again." Ambassador Solt's mandibles clicked, his posture stiff like metal. "You don't know that." Vale lifted his eyes. They looked ancient, exhausted, and certain. "They found your encryption. They found your hidden prisons. They found your trade world without a map." His glow pulsed once. "They are not searching. They are remembering." A silence fell that felt heavier than the Rotunda's gravity field. Then Maven noticed something on the document. A small line at the bottom,
too small for most delegates to see from the floor. Access log last opened by Council Archivist Maven Core. Her heart stopped. Her name on every screen. Her legs went weak. She gripped the booth rail hard enough to hurt. "I didn't," she whispered to herself. "I didn't open it." Heads turned upward toward her booth like a wave. Dozens, hundreds, thousands. Ambassador Salt's gaze locked on her. "Chronicler," he said, voice dangerous. "Explain." Maven's mouth opened, but no sound came out. She felt like the room was squeezing her from all sides. Then her recorder beeped, one incoming signal, overriding every channel. A calm voice, human-sounding, spoke directly into the rotunda's audio system. Not angry, not rushed, just controlled. "Hello, Council," it said. "We used your archivist's credentials because you trust paperwork more than truth. Now listen carefully." Maven felt tears spill down her face, not because she was blamed, because the voice sounded like someone who had practiced being polite while carrying rage for a long, long time. The human voice continued, colder now. "You have 3 hours to deliver the 312 survivors to open space, alive and unharmed, or Kalen Drift will be no other account we collect."
The words 3 hours spread through the rotunda like poison in water, not because the council didn't understand time, because they understood what they couldn't do in time. Ambassador Salt's voice rose into a command tone that sounded brave until you listened closely. "Patch me through to this speaker. Open a negotiation channel." The human voice answered instantly, as if it had been waiting for that exact request. "Negotiation?" it repeated, almost amused. "You negotiated when you signed the orders, when you built the cages, when you decided their pain was acceptable." Salt's eyes narrowed. "State your identity." A pause. Then, "I am Captain Mara Voss, acting liaison of the fleet you call unknown." Maven flinched at the word captain. It made it real, not a monster, not a storm, a person with rank, with purpose. Salt leaned forward. "Captain Voss, if you cease hostilities, we can discuss reparations. We can—" "Stop," Voss said, calm as a closed door. "Your offers arrive late. We are not here for payment. We are here for return." The live feed from Callan Drift still ran. The collectors hovered over cities, rings humming, people rising. The spirals looked almost beautiful from far away, and that made Maven feel sick. A delegate from the Waring Choir, usually gentle, stood shaking. "Captain Voss, those people are not responsible. They are civilians. They are accounts, not because they deserve it, because your council understands only loss when it is yours." The Waring delegate's mouth opened, then closed. He had no answer for that. Aerith Val's voice was small. "Captain Voss," he said, "I am Aerith Val of the Keth Sori. I spoke your name into this chamber today. I am sorry." For the first time, the human voice softened. "Aerith," she said, "we remember you." That single sentence made the rotunda feel colder. Remembering wasn't a feeling anymore. It was a weapon. Ambassador Salt slammed his palm on the console. "If you have the power to do this, then you also have the power to destroy us outright. Why the theatrics?" Voss answered without hesitation. "Because we are not the monsters you taught each other to fear. We are not here for genocide." A beat. "We are here to prove a point you buried." Maven whispered, "What point?" Voss seemed to hear her, even though she hadn't spoken into a mic. "That you can't hide cruelty behind treaties forever," the captain said. "Eventually, someone comes back for the ones you trapped." A security chief stepped forward on the council floor, speaking into the channel. 3 hours is impossible. The sanctuary facility is deep secure. Transport requires— "Then you should have thought of that before you built it," Voss replied. No anger, just a clean, sharp fact. Outside, Callan Drift's collectors shifted position. One ring dimmed, another brightened, as if they were counting. Maven's eyes drifted back to the file. She saw the transfer note again. Next transfer window in 3 hours. They weren't bluffing. The timing matched, which meant the Council had planned to move the humans today. Why today? And where? A chilling idea crawled up Maven's spine. Maybe the Council didn't just hide the survivors. Maybe it was about to erase them. Aerith Val's voice spoke again, almost too quiet to catch. "They are buying time," he said, looking at Salt. "You are thinking of the old way. Hide the evidence." Ambassador Salt did not deny it, and that silence was an answer. A fresh alert flashed from inside the sanctuary file, an auto-update showing something new. Override active, execution protocol ready. Maven realized the Council wasn't planning a transfer. It was preparing to eliminate the human survivors before the deadline.
Maven's blood went cold so fast it felt like her veins turned to glass. Across every screen, the sanctuary file updated again, clean, official, impossible to misunderstand. Override active, execution protocol ready. For one heartbeat, the rotunda was silent. Then it exploded. Delegates screamed accusations. Some shouted treason, others shouted mercy, and a few shouted nothing at all because they couldn't find air. Ambassador Salt's face tightened into something sharp and ugly. "That protocol is—" He stopped, realizing denial was useless now. Aerith Val stepped forward, trembling with age and anger that had waited too long. "You were going to kill them," he whispered. "You were going to kill the last living proof." A defense minister snapped. "If we hand them over, the human fleet will tear us apart anyway." Another delegate yelled back, "And if we kill them, they will tear us apart for sure." Maven's hands shook over her console. She wanted to speak, she wanted to scream, but she was just a recorder, trained to observe, trained to stay small. Then Captain Mara Voss's voice returned, low and dangerous. "We see it," she said. Ambassador Salt stiffened. "You can read our internal files?" Voss didn't answer that directly. She didn't need to. The evidence was everywhere. "We gave you a path. Return them alive. Prove you can choose something other than cowardice." Her voice sharpened, the politeness peeling away. "And you chose a final lie." On the live feed, one collector ring paused mid-hum. The spiral of rising bodies slowed, like the sky itself was holding its breath. Voss spoke again, and it felt like a judge reading a verdict. "If the execution protocol activates," she said, "we will respond in a way your council will finally understand." Ambassador Salt forced calm into his tone, but it cracked at the edges. What response? A pause, too long, too controlled. Then Voss answered softly, "We will turn off your worlds, the way you turned off theirs." Maven's stomach twisted. Turning off a world didn't mean bombs. It meant grids, atmosphere processing, food synthesizers, medical networks, planetary shields, water recycling. Modern life simply switched to Ged. A delegate whispered, "That's impossible." Aerith Val looked at them with hollow eyes. "So was their fleet," he said. Salt slammed his hand down. "Enough! Security Council, locate the sanctuary site and lock down command authority, now." The black-armored guardian from earlier stepped forward again. "Command authority is already locked by the Quiet Security Committee." Salt's gaze sharpened. "Then override it." The guardian hesitated, just a fraction, but Maven saw it. And that hesitation screamed louder than words, because it meant the people who built Sanctuary still held the keys, and they were willing to use them. Maven's mind raced. The access log had blamed her. The human fleet had used her credentials. If the Council suspected her, she might not survive the next hour, yet none of that mattered compared to the line on the screen. Execution protocol, ready. Ready means close. Too close. Aerith Val lifted his head and spoke into the chamber like a curse and a prayer at once. "If you murder them,"
he said. "You will deserve what comes, and you will drag innocent worlds into your guilt." Ambassador Salt's voice turned raw. "What do you want us to do?" Val pointed at the file. "Do the one brave thing you have avoided for generations," he said. "Open the prison and accept the cost." Maven's console suddenly displayed a hidden subfolder inside the sanctuary file, something even the Council hadn't mentioned, labeled Human Project Starfall, Subject 001, The Singer, Status, Awake.
The label on Maven's console didn't feel like text. It felt like a heartbeat. Human Project, Starfall, Subject 001, The Singer, Status, Awake. Maven stared until her eyes burned. She had recorded 1,000 boring policy debates. She had watched minor wars start and end with signatures. But this was the kind of secret that changed the shape of history. On the council floor, only a few delegates had noticed the subfolder. Most were still arguing about the execution protocol, about blame, about what must be done. But Maven's screen was closer, and the file had opened for her like it wanted to be seen. She clicked. A short video log appeared. The footage was grainy, tinted green. A narrow room, cold walls. A human woman sitting upright on a metal bed, wrists free but posture tense. Her hair was dark, cut short. Her face looked tired in a way that went deeper than lack of sleep. A guard's voice came from off-screen. "Subject 001, confirm your designation." Elena's eyes looked directly into the camera. Her eyes were calm, too calm, like someone who had already screamed all the screams and found they didn't help. "My name is Elena Reyes," she said. Her English was translated automatically for the rotunda, and the translation was perfect, too perfect, like the council had studied it for years. "And you can stop calling me a subject." The guard's tone hardened. "You will answer." Elena's lips curved slightly, not a smile, a warning. "I already did," she said. "Every day you've kept us here." Maven's chest tightened. She remembered Aerith Val's words. Their first message was a song. A second clip played. Elena stood in the room, eyes closed, humming softly. Not loudly, not dramatically, just humming. The sensors on the screen spiked. Electromagnetic fluctuations, resonance patterns. The room's lights trembled. A lock on the far door clicked once, like it had lost confidence. The file's notes scrolled beside the video. Observation. Vocal resonance triggers anomalous field effects. Risk. Potential system disruption within 3 to 7 meters. Recommendation. Sedation during transport. Avoid audio exposure. Maven's mouth went dry. "They were afraid of her voice," she whispered. Behind her, the rotunda roared again. Someone had finally projected the subfolder onto the main screens. Now everyone was seeing it. Ambassador Salt's face had gone pale under his plating. "This is classified beyond." Captain Mara Voss interrupted, her voice suddenly tight. "Elena." The human captain said the name like it mattered more than war. The chamber fell quiet, listening. Voss spoke again, softer now. "Council, if she is awake, you have already made a mistake you can't undo." Salt snapped. "We did not harm her." Voss laughed once, cold and short. "You caged her. That is harm." Aerith Val looked up at the screens, and his old eyes shone with something like grief and awe. The singer, so the stories were true. A delegate asked the question everyone was avoiding. Why would humans send a lullaby before an attack? Voss answered quietly, "Because the lullaby isn't for you." The feed from Kalen Drift flickered again. The collectors kept working, but now their movement looked different, more alert, like they were waiting for a signal. Maven felt it in her bones. Whatever Elena Reyes was, she was the key, a weapon, a symbol, a person, and the Council had her, which meant the Council had one last chance left to choose. An emergency ping hit Maven's console from Sanctuary itself. Live audio, 3 words spoken by Elena, calm and clear. "I can hear them." The live audio crackled through Maven's console like a ghost stepping into the room. Elena Reyes's voice didn't sound panicked. That was the frightening part. It was steady, low, almost gentle, like she was speaking to someone sitting beside her. I can hear them. Around the rotunda, heads lifted. Even the loudest delegates stopped mid-argument, like the words had pulled a string inside them. Ambassador Salt leaned forward. Patch that audio to the central system, he ordered. A technician hesitated. Sir, that channel is secured and— Now, Salt snapped. The audio filled the rotunda. A soft hum came with it, faint, distant, like wind through a long hallway. Maven realized it wasn't the facility's ventilation. It sounded like a choir far away. Elena spoke again. You think they're silent because they don't shout, she said, but they're singing under everything. A guard's voice cut in, nervous. Subject 001, return to your bed. My name is Elena, she replied, and there was a quiet strength in the way she said it, like she was reclaiming a stolen thing. And you should sit down. The vibration is getting closer. Ambassador Salt's voice pushed through the broadcast, forcing authority into every syllable. Elena Reyes, this is Council Speaker Dreen Salt. Can you hear me? A pause. Then Elena answered. Yes, she said. I've heard you for a long time. Your voices come through the walls sometimes. You argue about rules while people disappear. Maven felt tears sting her eyes again. Not loud sobbing, just a steady burn. Salt swallowed. We are attempting to resolve the situation peacefully. Elena exhaled, a small bitter sound. Peacefully, she repeated, like the cage. Captain Mara Voss's voice entered the channel, gentle but heavy. Elena, it's Mara. Elena went quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice softened just slightly. Mara, she said, you found us. We never stopped. Listen, we need you alive and out. Can you move? Elena's next words made the rotunda chill. I can move, but you should know something. They didn't keep us here only to hide us. Erith Val's old eyes narrowed. Tell us, he whispered. Elena continued. They wanted to learn why we survived, why some of us didn't break. They tested sound, light, sleep, hunger, hope. They called it research. Her voice steadied again. They were building a weapon out of fear. The guard shouted, Stop talking. Elena ignored him. The hum in the background grew louder, like a storm approaching. Maven leaned in. That hum, it's the fleet, she realized. Elena spoke as if answering her thought. They're close, she said. Not to the planet, to me. Their signal is tuned to my body, like a key. Ambassador Salt's voice sharpened. Are you saying you can contact them? Elena hesitated. Then she said, I don't contact them. I resonate with them. Maven didn't fully understand, but the word felt right, like the universe had strings, and Elena was one of them. Captain Mara Voss spoke urgently. Elena, don't do it yet. Hold. We're still trying to get you out. Elena's next words made the rotunda chill. I can move, but you should know something. They didn't keep us here if they killed us, Mara. I'll sing. The rotunda felt like it was holding its breath. Across the screens, the sanctuary countdown blinked in brutal calm. Execution protocol, T-0012. Ambassador Salt was no longer pretending. His voice sounded scraped raw. Override command. Use every access tier. Technicians hammered consoles. Security chiefs shouted into comms. Delegates argued in frantic circles, but nobody was winning against the same thing that had always ruled the council, its own hidden machinery. On Maven's audio feed, Elena's breathing was steady. Too steady. Captain Mara Voss spoke like someone trying not to break. Elena, don't. Hold on. We're moving assets. We can—
Elena answered softly. Mara, I'm tired of holding. The background hum swelled again, closer now, deeper. The unknown fleet wasn't just near Kalen Drift, it was near Sanctuary. Aerith Val stepped into the center aisle, shaking with age, and raised his voice to the chamber. Listen to her, he pleaded. You can still choose something true. Ambassador Salt stared at the ticking timer. His mandibles trembled. Then he did something nobody expected. He turned to the black-armored guardian. You, he said, you know where Sanctuary is. The guardian didn't answer. Salt stepped closer, lowering his voice into a threat and a confession. If you don't give me the coordinates, you will not live long enough to regret it. The guardian's helmet tilted slightly. A long pause. Then, in a voice like stone cracking, he spoke the location code aloud. The moment the code entered the Rotunda system, Captain Voss's tone changed, sharp, immediate. We have it. All units, go! Outside, on Kalen Drift's feed, the collectors paused. The spiral slowed, like a hand hovering above a switch. Inside Sanctuary, Elena whispered, They heard that. The countdown dropped under 1 minute. Maven's hands were shaking so hard she couldn't feel her fingers. She didn't even care who blamed her anymore. She only cared about that number, 000037. Then, something impossible. The timer froze. Not slowed, not glitched. It simply stopped, like time had been told no. A new line appeared. Execution protocol. Disabled. External authority. Ambassador Salt stumbled back. External authority, he breathed. That's not... Captain Voss's voice came through, calm again, but now it carried iron. We are inside your system, she said. You locked the door, we brought the key. On Kalen Drift, the collectors rose gently, backing away from the cities as if they had completed a test and decided to spare the rest. People already lifted were lowered back down, confused, crying, alive. Elena exhaled, and for the first time her voice sounded young. Elena, she asked. I'm here, Voss replied. We're coming for you and the others. No one gets left in the dark again. Aerith Val's light pulsed warmly. Small, fragile hope. Ambassador Salt stood very still. His pride looked broken, but his eyes were open. What happens now? He asked. Captain Voss answered with quiet finality. Now you tell the truth, publicly, fully, and you rebuild what you tried to erase. A pause, or the next time we arrive, we won't ask. Elena's voice returned, soft as a lullaby. I won't sing, she said, not today. Maven finally let herself breathe. The chamber, this giant room of laws and lies, had been forced into a new kind of silence. Not fear, accountability. Kalen Drift survived. The 312 human survivors were recovered alive. The Council's hidden programs were exposed, and the old quiet committees were dismantled. The galaxy didn't become perfect overnight, but it could no longer pretend it was innocent, and the name human was no longer dust. It was a warning and a promise. But far beyond the trade lanes, deep in the dark, another signal began to rise, because Mara Voss knew this truth. Some cages were still out there, and not all of them belonged to the Council. May this message strengthen your faith and renew your hope. Thank you for staying until the end. If this touched your heart, like, share, and subscribe to Astro Realms for more uplifting content. May God's blessings overflow in your life. See you soon.